Dr. Anderson says on page 63. He says, so he mentions historically societies have been based on three institutions that served as pillars. One was the family, two was the church, and three was the community. So for the black community, you lost your community, you lost your family. The churches are still here. Some of the churches do a good job. Some of the churches can do some work. He also says neither the landless European serfs nor the landless Jews under the pharaohs of Egypt were able to do it. So basically, he's saying that no group of people has ever been able to have any sort of power in their environment if they did not own the land on which you stand. So land ownership must be the number one priority for you and your children. You have to teach them that right now. For this reason, Black Americans need a solid foundation of communities on which to begin empowering ourselves. Like Moses, we must begin to build physical communities and maintain a strong sense of community. So he's talking about the physical and the psychological. Moses used his vision of the promised land to mobilize his people for a 40-year journey to a land upon which Jews built functional communities. Families, religious institutions, commerce, schools, and a strong sense of community. So families, this is why conversation about the Black family is so important. You have to counter any narratives out there that are teaching Black men to hate Black women, or Black women to hate Black men, or Black people to hate Black children. Right? You have to counter all of that. And so if you want to know why my wife and I made the weird decision to make our marriage public, and I put my proposal online deliberately, knowing that I would get teased by some people. I know I got congratulated by a lot of people, but I got teased by some because I got on my knee and I professed my love for her. I cried that day. I let everybody know exactly how I felt about that woman. I did that because I really want us to understand how important family is for our community. Family is hard, though. A lot of you have strong families, and you know how hard it is. There's a lot of negotiation. There's a lot of struggle, a lot of stuff that gets on your nerves. But family really matters. It makes a big difference. So he says that what the Jewish community did to have power is, you got to follow the power blueprint. They created their own. They made sure their families are strong. They have religious institutions. So whatever your religion happens to be, that those institutions are important. That spirituality matters. Commerce, no matter what the community is, you got to do business. Everybody has to do business. Next, schools. Let me see. So schools, you have to build schools so you can educate your own kids. The Black Core of Three is that we, as Black people, should be educating our own children, creating our own jobs, and supporting our own businesses. And also a strong sense of community. That's just psychological in terms of understanding the value of the community and cherishing that value so that you protect that value and you deal with anybody who doesn't respect the value. So he says here, boundary lines, the new color line. Nearly a century ago, W.E.B. Du Bois accurately proclaimed that the color line will be the problem of the 20th century. It's a new millennium now, and it is becoming clear that the problem of the 21st century will be the community boundary line. America is balkanizing along racial, ethnic, economic, and religious lines. Across America, groups are aggressively seeking territory or communities in which they can store their wealth, resources, and political power to enjoy and preserve for their future generations. As noted earlier, Hispanics, for example, are assembling their economic and political intentions behind their Spanish language and culture. They intend to use both to capture territory, rights, and a political base within the United States. So a lot of people are making moves. What move are you making? The practice of seeking territory for communities will intensify as more and more people from around the world immigrate to America. They come to America in search of a better quality of life, not to integrate with whites or to get along with Blacks. They are coming to this country to get ahead economically and to find wealth and fortune. They commit themselves to competing with any and all groups, economically and politically, on behalf of themselves, their families, and their native countries. Typically, their initial destination is close to or within Black neighborhoods. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that people that come from other countries, why would a Ukrainian say, okay, the first thing I want to do when I get to America is I want to start a business in a Black neighborhood? Why would a Ukrainian, an Iranian, an Arab, why do they all want to go to the hood? Why would you start in the hood? Wouldn't you want to start in Beverly Hills or someplace where everything's nice and the grass is green? And why do you think they start in Black neighborhoods? Right. Because they can make money. Because Black neighborhoods can be easily penetrated. And there are lots of willing consumers who are fully prepared to give away their money, who've been fully trained to give away all their resources. I went on a run through West Atlanta one time, and I went to visit my grandmother's grave. My grandmother is right here behind me. That's that panther behind my head. The Black Business School panther is my grandmother Felicia. And I keep her spirit with me everywhere I go. And one day I looked on the map. I was in downtown Atlanta, and I saw on the map that her grave site was 6 miles from the hotel. So even though a 12-mile run, because it was straight out and back, even though a 12-mile run kind of made me nervous because that's a little above my pay grade, I said, babe, let's do a long run today. I want to go see my grandmother. I haven't seen her in years. I want to go say hi to her. So we ran through West Atlanta. We didn't know which neighborhood we were going through. We were running right through West Atlanta, which is a neighborhood that's in a little bit of disrepair. There was a lot of abandoned buildings. I saw a big grocery store that was abandoned with some brothers sitting on the front of the store, drinking and talking and stuff. And I saw a lot of poverty. I saw a ton of poverty. And what was interesting, though, was that when I didn't see poverty, here's what I saw. I saw some pockets of prosperity. So here's some examples of areas where I did not see poverty. One, I saw a construction site where they were building some new apartment units, and every single construction worker was not Black. This is Atlanta now. Chocolate City, supposedly, or whatever. Well, maybe DC was Chocolate City, but y'all know what it is. You know what I mean, right? So in Atlanta, all the construction workers were not Black. I noticed that. I looked, and I was looking for Black construction workers. I saw no Black people. Two, I saw a church that looked like it was made from the hands of God. It looked like it was literally on a street where every single house on the block was torn down and busted down and looked like it wasn't worth more than $40,000. This church looked like a beautiful castle, most beautiful building ever. It's the prettiest building on the block. The third thing I saw that did not reflect poverty was I went to a store, and I went into the store to buy some Gatorade, and the store had bulletproof windows and bars on the windows, and it was run by a guy that looked like he was from the Middle East. And this is something that you see in communities all across this country. And so this is something I want you to be conscious of that. When you go through Black neighborhoods, I want you to pay attention to who owns the businesses. One brother, I think it was Kari Muhammad, I believe, in Louisville, Kentucky, went to a little plaza in a Black neighborhood, and he said, I want you to look at every single business in this plaza. Not one of these businesses is owned by a Black person. There was a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese spot, a nail salon run by some Vietnamese. Like literally every single business was run by somebody who wasn't Black. So that's really something we have to pay attention to. This is widespread. It comes from culture. Economics is culture. Your culture is, I'm going to go get a job working for a white man. That's your slave culture that you're given as a kid. So you have to consciously change that culture. The subconscious mind is very deep. I told you, you guys know my wife is an expert on the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is programmed by three things. It's programmed by repetition, repetition, trauma, and symbolism. Repetition, trauma, and symbolism. So you've repeatedly received references that Black people are broke, Black people are poor, Black people are ignorant, they made ignorance into Black culture. That you have a culture, in fact, that looks up to guys like Future who destroy families, and they look down on guys like Russell Wilson because he loves his kids. That's absolutely insane. Like, that's a mental illness. So the culture shapes a lot of value systems when it comes to economics and everything else. So you got the repetition. You're repeatedly getting these messages to say that you're less than. So in many cases, we behave as less than. And when someone steps out and says, well, I'm not going to be less than, I want to be better than, someone says, well, what's wrong with you? You's an uppity Negro, right? I get called uppity all the time just because I say that my platform's for intelligent Black people. I want you to be intelligent. I had people say that I was being a snob. And I said, what, am I supposed to be ignorant? I don't want to be ignorant. Ignorant people get killed. I don't want to be ignorant. And then the other piece, repetition, the trauma. Trauma's everywhere. We have trauma all throughout society. Racism, typically, what I'm really thinking about here is, if you go back in slavery, when you're being taught that the white man's the boss, typically there's some traumatic experience that lets you know that he's the boss, that lets you know what world you're living in. And so a lot of us go through some sort of racial trauma at an early age, or we go through some sort of family trauma at an early age. And these traumas shape you. And this is why things like therapy are so important for Black people. Every Black person who wants to elevate needs to go and look into therapy. I'm a big believer in that. The third part is symbolism. So every symbol that you see, everything from the white Jesus to the white man on TV who's the doctor and the black man standing next to him who's the basketball player, all this symbolism tells you who you are and who you are not. It tells you who you are and who they are. And you internalize that. And so then next thing you know, you go to a public school in the hood and you talk to a room full of black boys in the 5th grade and you say, what do you want to do for a living? Half of them say, I want to be a basketball or a football player or a rapper. This is because of the repetitive symbolism that they've seen all throughout media and all throughout TV. Okay, so let me keep going. The practice of seeking territory in communities will intensify as more and more people around the world immigrate to America. As ethnics fill in business voices, to page 64 of the book Powernomics, powernomics.com, page 64. As ethnics fill in business voids in black neighborhoods with a modicum of success, they begin to practice ethno-aggregation. They bring in and aggregate their families and others from their native lands. So they become gang affiliated, basically. The whole world economically is gang affiliated. Economics is a gang sport. If you have a gang or a team, you will do better economically. And gangs aren't just the Crips and the Bloods. Gangs are also Apple Computer is a gang. It's a group of people who live by the same code. They wear the same uniforms. They have the same values. They're working toward the same purpose, and they formed a $2 trillion company as a result of that. The Asian Pacific Economic Union is an economic gang. NAFTA is an economic gang. The police department is a gang. The Democratic Party is a gang. So these gangs are everywhere. And so ultimately what he's saying is that when people come from America, or excuse me, from other countries to America, they find their gang. They go to the neighborhood where their people are located. They don't try to integrate and mix in and blend in and all that. They go to the space where their gang is located. And then also they bring in other members of the gang. So right now, politically, the Hispanic community is bringing in as many gang members as they can so that they, not actual gang members, I'm not talking about gang bangers, I'm talking about people that are part of their political gang, and they're using them to not just build power within that community, but they're also building power for the Democratic Party so they can push black people out because we've become kind of a nuisance because we've kind of woke up and started asking for things. All right, so let's keep going. As ethnics fill in business voids in black neighborhoods with a modicum of success, they begin to practice ethno-aggregation. They then develop more businesses in black neighborhoods. As they capture territory, they establish powerful economies and political organizations using their ethnic culture, language, and religion as their common ground. There is a little girl who's from Vietnam who is a good friend of my daughter, and I love her to death. In fact, I call her daughter because I just love this little girl. She's so sweet. She's super smart. She's great. And she was telling me about her family and how they do business and how they operate. And so this little girl who was 12 at the time was explaining to me, pay attention now, our kids, 12 years old, some of them, they tell you how to twerk and all sorts of. She's telling me about the family business at the age of 12. And she said, yeah, so my aunt moved here, and then she moved my cousin over from Vietnam, and my cousin had to go work for my aunt for a while. And then if you don't do the work, they send you back to Vietnam. And then they've saved their money up, and they bring someone else. And then after they save the money up, they also don't just bring someone else over. They open up another nail salon. Like, it was something like that. I was just sitting here listening to this 12-year-old child explain the family's business model to me. And I'm sitting here just thinking about the fact that a lot of the kids that you see, a lot of our kids are going to these white schools. They can't even read. They can't even read because they have somehow been convinced that being ignorant is the same as being black. They really think that if you can read, then you ain't really black. Do you know how dangerous that is? Do you know how dangerous it is to go into a racist society where they want to lock you up and kill you, give you RICO charges, shoot you in the head, take away all your money? Do you understand how dangerous it is to go into that space and not know which way is up or which way is down, not understand any of the rules, not have any critical thinking skill whatsoever, have no sense of preparation at all? You're going to get slaughtered. You're being thrown in the middle of the battlefield with no preparation, no training, no weapons, no shields, no nothing, no army backing you up, no nothing. And then we sit back and we wonder, well, why are black people going through it like this? Well, because you ain't preparing your damn children. You're not preparing them. Of course, an unprepared person is preparing to fail. When I talk to my daughter, the three, and I'm not putting my family on a pedestal or nothing like that. I'm just giving you examples that maybe can help some of you. I'm just sharing this perspective. Take it for what it is. But when I sit there with my daughter that's 11, I drill her. I say, what are the three P's of success? She says, practice, preparation, and persistence. Practice, preparation, persistence. That means that if you want to get good at something, you practice, and if you're not good enough, you practice even harder until you become good. Preparation means that if you are not prepared to succeed, then you are preparing to fail. Persistence means that when times get tough, you get tougher. That means you don't give up. You fight, you fight, you fight, you fight, you fight. You never give up. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going until you die. You don't give up. These are basic values that will take you to the top of the world. The three P's of success, literally, I can apply it to every single experience she's ever had. Every time she struggled or failed, whether it was being late to school or not being ready for dance class or having to get through a math test, we always go back to the three P's. And I say, which of the three P's did you violate today? And she'll say, perseverance. Well, it's either persistence or perseverance, as we those words are interchangeable. Or I'll say, which P did you violate this morning when you missed the bus? Preparation. Right? Which P did you violate the other day when you went to dance class and you didn't know the routine? Practice, right? So we go through all of this, right? So I just really think that it's disingenuous and to some extent flat out ignorant of us as a community to not understand the importance of preparing our children to be successful. And preparation also means creating your own value system that might lean on things like accountability. When my parents would prepare me for life, accountability was just a given. There were very few situations where I could come home where something happened to me and say, oh, it wasn't my fault. They did it to me because I'm black, or I'm going through this because I'm black. My parents didn't want to hear all of that. That's weak man talk. They just don't, to this day, they don't want to hear that. So I just really think that you have to be careful about who you form alliances with. A lot of people that integrate us in and are so-called allies, they want you to be weak. They want you to lose. They want you to struggle so they have somebody to feel sorry for. They want you to be the retarded kid at the basketball game. They want you to be the one that's coming in last place. They want you to be the one who's struggling a day late and $1 short. And that's not healthy for you. That's not going to help you succeed. I think that the strongest people in the community, the ones who I want teaching my children, are the ones who say, okay, what did you do wrong? How can you do better? I'm going to challenge you to do better. I'm going to push you a little bit harder. You have to have people like that if you want to be successful, because some of the stuff that I see making excuses for everything it's not working. Right? That's why some of your men are so weak. That's why some of your women have an excuse for everything that goes wrong in their life. So let me keep going here. As watching how these new arriving immigrants use a sense of community to build social and economic power bases should be instructional for Black Americans. It takes a fully functional community to raise a child and to raise up a competitive race of people. He says neighborhoods are not enough. Neighborhoods are problematic for any group seeking empowerment. Neighborhoods are problematic. Okay. Unfortunately, most Black Americans live in neighborhoods, not communities. A community signifies a commitment signifies commitment and the potential for power. Neighborhood does not. So a community has power, a neighborhood does not. Webster's New World Dictionary defines neighborhood as a vicinity or physical space where there are people living near one another. The concept of a neighborhood implies an area that is residential in nature with lesser wealth, power, and status than a community. The majority of Black Americans live in impoverished Black neighborhoods and spend approximately 95% of their annual disposable income with people who live outside of their neighborhood. They spend only 5% of their disposable income in Black neighborhoods. They spend 3% with non-Black owned businesses that are located in Black neighborhoods, but whose owners live outside of Black neighborhoods. Thus, only 2% of Black Americans' disposable income is spent in Black owned businesses in Black neighborhoods. It is impossible for any large population or neighborhood to be self-sufficient on only 2% of its income. So you have to keep going to work for white folks because you keep giving your money away and you're living paycheck to paycheck because 98% of your money is going to other people. By spending its disposable income in other groups, businesses, and communities, Black America impoverishes itself and impedes the growth of functional communities. One benefit of Jim Crow segregation was that it forced Blacks to build what can appropriately be called quasi-communities. Unlike neighborhoods where people simply live in the same area, during Jim Crow segregation, Black Americans were unified with a code of conduct. They lived together because they had the same interests and needs, but equally as important, they trusted and depended on each other. From the Civil War until the end of the Black Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s, Blacks successfully built a vibrant culture, marginally competitive schools, Black churches, personal service businesses, and a professional class. Though they were small in number, these community assets produced jobs as well as products and services for Black people. The desire for integration caused Blacks to abandon their businesses, communities, culture, and code of conduct. So these are the things that Dr. Anderson says that we abandoned in integration. We lost our businesses. So let's be conscious about this. I'm going to consciously ask you a question. Give me a yes or no, consciously. Do we have more businesses than we had during integration? Yes or no? Do we have more businesses now? Yes or no? No. Communities. We abandoned our communities. Do we have more thriving Black communities now than we had before integration? Yes or no? Okay. Culture. Has Black culture gotten better since integration or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? Okay. And code of conduct. Have Black people maintained the code of conduct better since integration or not? Code of conduct. So he's saying that because of integration, you lost your businesses, your community, your culture, and your code of conduct. You have no floor to behavior. There is no code of conduct. So some Negro can get on TV and act like a damn baboon. And if he's getting paid money from white people to act like a baboon, you will sit back and admire him and say, ooh, that's a successful Black man. That's a successful Black man. Look at him. He's at the Met Gala in a baboon costume. I want my children to grow up and wear a baboon costume too. That's what we're looking at. That's what, and you look at BET, my Lord Jesus, BET owned by Sumner Redstone's family, by Viacom. They're not Black. Sumner Redstone's family is Jewish. They run BET and they put any old crap on TV that's popular without any consideration for how this affects the ability of Black people to get our businesses, our communities, our culture, or our code of conduct. They've even started to try to claim and occupy Black culture. They are invading your culture. They had their last ad campaign. I watched it very carefully because I like to see the things that are programming people. They specifically said, for the culture, for the culture, for the culture, for the culture. They're constantly using that word culture. And I really, really think, in my view, I think that we have to be really cautious about who is allowed to use the word culture. Don't you dare say that whatever nonsense is coming out of your mouth is my culture. If you're talking about hating Black women or destroying Black families, that is not my culture. I don't know whose culture you're talking about, but put that on somebody else. You know, in fact, I've been watching this show on Paramount called The Offer. And on The Offer, it is all about the making of the movie The Godfather. How many of y'all saw the movie The Godfather? Give me a yes if you saw The Godfather. Give me a yes or no. Al Pacino, Don Corleone, Marlon Brando. He played Don Corleone. Great movie. Great movie. Well, The Offer is all about the making of The Godfather. And what I did not know that was really interesting was that when Mario Puzo wrote The Godfather, the Italian community was outraged. They were outraged because they said, this is wrong. This is racist. You are depicting our people in a way that is not accurate. You're giving everybody the impression that every Italian person wants to be a gangster, wants to be a thug. We don't like this. They fought it tooth and nail. And then when they made the movie, the actual mafia gangsters were trying to come kill them because they were like, we do not want you to put this depiction of our people out there. Well, they got the movie made anyway. It got put out there. It popularized the image of the Italian community as a bunch of thugs, hoodlums, gangsters, and killers, to the point where people think that if you're Italian, you must be connected to the mafia somehow. And then shortly thereafter, life began to imitate art. Right after The Godfather was made, pay attention now, suddenly the nation's consciousness was all over these mafia families in New York. Right? Suddenly, we're all thinking about this, right? So the late 1970s, and this is when Donald Trump actually goes and builds this hotel for $400 million, and he works with the mafia, and the mafia is controlling the whole construction and controlling all the labor unions back in New York, and I think even Al Sharpton was kind of in the mix of all that a little bit because of the boxing and all that stuff. So then what happens then? Pay attention now. So, because the mafia has become part of the national conversation and national consciousness, they start Giuliani and some other people start implementing RICO laws. They created RICO charges to specifically take down the mafia families and give them 80, 100-year prison sentences. So what my point in all this is to say that media depictions can make a huge difference in terms of how the world responds to you. If you allow them to depict your people as a bunch of gangsters and thugs and hoodlums and criminals and somebody who'll shoot your mama, beat you, slap your baby, and kill your dog, then they're gonna see this and people are gonna say, "Oh my God, these people, these black people, they are is gangsters." Listen, did you listen to the music? He said he would shoot an old lady, and then suddenly you got black men that are getting locked up on these long prison sentences because they're like, oh, we got to get rid of them because the media has put it in our consciousness that all these people ain't nothing but gangsters and thugs. And this is what has happened to you. The same thing that happened with the Italian community is exactly what they did to you with hip hop, with gangster rap, where they got you literally looking up to people who are very harmful to the black community. Ain't done nothing good for black people. Ain't taking care of their damn kids. Don't have no respect for women. Don't have no respect for family. Don't have any respect for intelligence. Literally, some of them living like damn animals, and you think the animal is the coolest thing in the world. Well, then, if you looking up to an animal, don't be surprised when the world thinks you are a dog. When you are looking up to the dog, then people are going to think you're a dog because you are literally telling them exactly who the hell you are. So you got to be very careful about what kind of behavior you admire or that you put on a pedestal or whose activities you actually look up to. Because a lot of these media images are making black people look incredibly stupid. When Google has an office party, they will bring black people in for the office party because they believe that all black people like to rap or play basketball. But when they're looking for an engineer to hire for their computer systems division, they're not looking at your black ass. They're looking at Pradeep from Bangladesh because they see the Indian community as being good with science and engineering. Black people, oh, they can rap and play basketball. That's what we need them for. We'll bring them in. We'll bring in Lizzo for a concert so she can degrade the black woman and twerk. Bring a big butt in here and twerk it or whatever and acting a damn fool. Like that's what they look to black people to do. I saw this. I remember I went to a Denver Nuggets game, and on my way to the Denver Nuggets game, I walked past a university and I saw they had a pictures of all their professors. It was the University of Denver, Colorado. They had about 120 professors all on this wall. And I looked specifically to see how many black faces I saw. Maybe I saw 2, maybe 3. That's it. I didn't see any black men. I think I saw 2 or 3 black women. Then I get to the game and I look on the court and I see black men playing basketball. And then I see the entertainment for tomorrow night with somebody named Big Frida, I don't know if Big Frida's a man or a woman or whatever, a woman with a husky voice or whatever. Big Frida was like the big entertainment that was coming in that week. So what you are is you are the entertainment. You are the joke. You are the clown. And so when you show up and you say, well, I'm not really the clown. I want to be something different. They say, no, sit down, clown. We have no respect for you. We have no respect for your people because look at how you behave. So nobody respects an ignorant person. Nobody respects a clown. So don't ever take pride in being stupid. Never validate ignorance. Let me keep going. Black Americans need to be accepted by white society, or their need to be accepted by white society was greater than their need to be accepted by black society. Today's black neighborhoods no longer qualify to even be called quasi-communities because they no longer have a network of black businesses or a group code of conduct. So he's saying that our neighborhoods are not even communities anymore. They have no code of conduct. They have no network of businesses, none of that. Black neighborhoods are primarily where the majority of Black people eat and sleep. They do not embody the criteria for a functional community. Consequently, Black neighborhoods are typically referred to as ghettos, urban areas, inner cities, or they are sometimes identified by terms such as the hood. These broad, ambiguous terms signal the dependent, non-competitive nature of Black geographical areas across the country. So then Dr. Anderson talks about developing a sense of community. He says, what is a sense of community and why is it important? A sense of community is the collective thinking, seeing, and behaving as a we, not as a me. So we and me, those terms have to compete with each other at a very early age in the sense that you have to understand it's bigger than you. It's more important than you. Even when you talk about something as simple as how you choose to date, if you are constantly saying, you know, I don't want to, I'm a single man. I don't want nothing to do with no mother with children. Because that gets in the way of me getting all the sex I want. I can't go out here and just get what's best for me. Then that's an immature, problematic statement. It doesn't. I'm not saying, and we've talked about this a little bit. I'm not going to talk about too much, but I'm not saying that you have to go date any particular person. I'm not saying you have to go date a mother with kids, but just be quiet. Then be quiet, because there are some men who agree with the idea that as Black men, we are responsible for the whole community. So there has never been a child that has run across my path ever where I did not feel at that point, if there was an opportunity for me to improve the life of that child, that is my job. That's not me being nice. That's not me going above and beyond. That is my job. Whatever that means. I got to give them $2, give them some encouraging words, give them some advice. I get on the internet and I say it all the time. People say, Dr. Boyce, I look up to you like an uncle. I look up to you like a father. I say, good. If you don't have a daddy that's worth a damn, I'll be your daddy. Come to my channel every day. I'll be your daddy, and I will give you every piece of advice that my daddy said to me so that you can go out here in this world and know what the hell's going on. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying to you is that word we, you have to be able to internalize that. If you can't use the word we when you're talking about your own people, then I was going to say, fuck you. But some of y'all got kids, so I'm sorry. I had to get it out. I got to apologize. But seriously, if all you can use is the word I, and you can't ever use the word me, we, every word, if every word is I or me, and you can never use we or us, then what good are you to anybody other than yourself? You're good to nothing. You're good for nothing. You know, if you run around getting women pregnant and abandoning kids everywhere because you want to just go have as much sex as possible and you want to act a fool, I don't have anything in common with you. We are not the same. We are not the same. If you have negative things to say about Black men, or you have negative things to say about Black people, and you want to avoid Black people, I just don't know what to do with you, because we can't play a team sport together if you run around the court like Russell Westbrook. If you watch basketball, you'll know two guys who have never won a championship, who probably never will, are Russell Westbrook and James Harden. This is a sports analogy. Y'all who follow sports know what I'm talking about. Russell Westbrook has never won anything because all Russell Westbrook cares about is the statistics of Russell Westbrook. If you ever watch him in a game, watch him. All he does is score all the points, and he keeps the ball, and he shoots all day long, and he'll score 35 points, and the team will get its ass kicked, and he doesn't care because all he's thinking about is himself. That is a guy who will never win a championship because no one ever taught him that in order to win, you have to operate as a team. So some of y'all are not team players, and I get it. That's fine. You don't have to be, but I don't really know what to do with people like that. I have nothing. I don't know. Success as a collective, success in a pro-Black context requires at some point you picking your teammates. And everybody doesn't have to be your teammate, but you got to figure out who your teammates are. My teammates are my wife, my kids, my friends. Y'all are my teammates, right? Like you have to have teammates in order to win this game. If you make it all about you, then you will lose. Social integration has intensified our need for a strong sense of community or a sense of peoplehood. Having abandoned their quasi-communities, cultures, schools, and businesses for the integration promised land, many Black Americans cannot easily return to physical communities that are primarily Black. Those who cannot return can exercise an option. They can identify with Black physical communities and organizations via their mindset, actions, and support. This strong identification and support is what is commonly referred to as a sense of community or sense of peoplehood. It is what people feel when they have a strong psychological identification with a physical community and its inhabitants. They are attracted to and desire the cultural familiarity, security, and satisfaction they receive from association with these communities. The psychological damage blacks have experienced as a result of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and racism will pose significant challenges to developing a strong sense of community. I can tell you, I really think that a lot of the problems in the black community, many of them start off in STEM from um, just that school part. That school part, I really think that about at least maybe 40-50% of the damage to black adults and black families and the black community occurs because we send our children off to white folks to get an education. I'm not saying that you can't learn from other people, but before you're learning from them, you should be learning from us. Before you send them off to be exposed to other people's values, you have to make sure they know who they are so that they can be among those things, but not internalize those things. So when a child is sent to school with teachers that hate them, teachers that care nothing and know nothing about black people, teachers that have their own value system, teachers that want you to just sit down, shut up, and just be a good boy and fit in, it screws their head up. And hundreds of thousands of black kids come out of these schools and they can't even read. So I really think that word schools, I just kind of think, I think that those of you that really want to make a move, I think you have to really be innovative about this and understand that learning and education is not something that just has to happen in a building, with a bunch of, infrastructure. You're learning right now. You're in class right now. This is school right now. I have more credentials than any teacher you've ever had in your life. It's all documented. So school can be anywhere. In fact, school isn't actually anywhere. School occurs when you're watching movies, and it occurs in media. School is occurring in music. People are always being educated and indoctrinated to some sort of mindset, and so you want to be conscious and aware of what you're internalizing psychologically, because that's going to shape who you are. So be very conscious. The same way you're careful about what you eat, or you should be, you should also be careful about what you're eating psychologically and spiritually. I don't take in stuff that is not good for my spirit, that's going to make me less of the man that I need to be. I just don't. I don't even on the internet, when people do weird videos or stupid videos, or they say crazy, they might even say crazy stuff about me on the internet. I don't watch those videos. So I'm like, Boyce, you don't need to take in any of this. There's nothing that's going to benefit you from watching this stupid troll say stuff that isn't true. It's only going to make you mad. It's going to distract you. It's going to make you small-minded. It's going to get on your nerves. It's going to make you unhappy. So go spend time with your kids instead. Right, so be conscious about what you take in. That's extremely important. Now, here Dr. Anderson talks about the social engineering on black communities, which I think is fascinating in terms of how they engage in mind control. So I'm going to go a little bit longer. Typically, we go about an hour, but I'm going to go a little bit longer because I really want to get into this, because he talks a little bit about some of the Willie Lynchisms that are used in order to control the minds of black people. And by the way, don't forget, some of you asked about it earlier. If you still want to join that Black Wealth Boot Camp on July 7th, where we're going to talk about covered call options as a way to generate income from the stock market. It's big. I've been working on this for 2 years. I'm super excited about it. If you'd like to join us still, you can go to boycewatkins.com, click the link at the top, and you can take a look and see if you like it. And also, don't forget, as a member of the book club, I think you can either use Dr. Boyce and get a discount, or you can, as one word, or you can also use, I think, the word book club. I think if you use the word book club, you get a discount for that too. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com and take a look if you'd like to sign up, and you can bring your family and stuff like that to that too. All right. So he says the impact of social engineering on communities. Throughout the relationship between blacks and whites, the majority white society has kept black Americans under various forms of control: physical, legal, and symbolic. Physical, I'm underlining this: physical, legal, and symbolic. So they control you physically, they control you legally, they control you symbolically. The majority society, through its primary institutions, has used rudimentary sociological and psychological principles to control blacks and to deprive them of their sense of peoplehood. In such a state, black people could easily be misled into inappropriate behavior, identifying with the oppressor groups and hating their own group. This is not a conspiracy theory. The facts are evident in the marked inequalities between the races and the continued inappropriate behavior patterns of black Americans. So Dr. Anderson basically says that the evidence comes in the, if you want to see the evidence of black brainwashing, all you got to do is turn on the TV. All you got to do is turn on the radio. All you got to do is look around. So he says the evidence is in the inappropriate behavior. Oh, and also all you got to do is look at the statistics for black kids coming through the public school system and look at how many of those kids can't read, can't write, can't do math, don't have a nickel in their pocket, and don't even know how to don't even know how to get a job, let alone build wealth. They don't know any of these things. So let's keep going. There is no other way to explain why historical inequalities remain unchanged and black Americans continue to cede and surrender their wealth and resource powers to their competitors while their own family, community, and the race as a whole remains powerless and impoverished. These are neither innate nor normal behavior characteristics, so let us examine their origins. So he's saying, let us examine why you're so screwed up. Let's see. What does it say? He says, research suggests that aberrant group behaviors among blacks began in 1710 and were formalized into law when the Virginia colonial government introduced meritorious manumission, a public policy that was used to condition and instill internal controls into the psyche of enslaved blacks. The practice rewarded blacks who saw slavery through the eyes of the white society, were willing to work against their own group's best interests, and inform on members of their race who were planning to escape and free other blacks. So basically, you got rewarded for working against your own best interests. Next, he says, this social engineering effectively destroyed most black people's sense of community, trust, and accountability. So they killed your community by rewarding snitches, basically, rewarding defectors, rewarding people that were going to work in the interests of the oppressor. So this is why maybe this is why trust is a lack of trust is so high. So let's see here. Though undocumented, many black Americans believe that soon after its inception, meritorious manumission was merged into what we now call Willie Lynchism. According to popular belief, Willie Lynch came to Jamestown, Virginia in 1712, offering a mind-controlling ideology to destroy black people's sense of community. A professional slave trainer, Willie Lynch offered the slaveholders a conditioning system that he guaranteed would instill internal controls that would effectively divide blacks for centuries. He proposed that slave masters create divisions among blacks and separate them along the lines of gender, age, tribe, culture, class, rank, and skin color. To this day, the effects of Willie Lynchism continue to encourage black individualism, selfishness, and self-hatred. So when you hear black people talking crazy on the internet and talking about themselves and only caring about themselves, Willie Lynch is in full effect. He said Willie Lynchism was designed to take away the collective and make it all about the individual. So this is something that you should be very conscious of. So let's read here. So he says that blacks should be separated along gender. So let me ask you all this. Let's do this. Let's see. Let's ask a yes or no question. Do you think there's a gender war in the black community? Is there, when you look on the internet, do you see men hating on women, attacking women, talking crazy about black women, and women talking crazy about black men? Do you think there's a gender war that's happening? Yeah, okay. So gender, check. Age. Do you think that there's maybe an age thing where maybe young people are trained not to respect older people disrespect younger people? Yes or no? Okay. Tribe. Is there a lot of tribalism that you see in the community with different groups? Like, you know, I'm part of this group. I was what was it? Gosh, what was it? You had the foundational Black Americans against the other group, ADOS. And I'm not dissing, I'm not making fun of anybody, I promise you. But I was like, y'all are saying the same things. How are y'all? I don't understand. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm not about attacking anybody. I'm just gonna say that sometimes there's a point where you gotta take the time. In my view, it's healthy to take the time to say, okay, what are the things we have in common, as opposed to focusing on all the things that we have apart that makes us different. How about we just focus on the things that make us the same? Let's see. You got culture, class, rank, and skin color. Okay, so let's see. He says though slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery officially ended in 1865 and 1954, respectively, no formal records are known to have been kept that explain the principles and techniques involved in the conditioning process. If our goal is to build functional communities, we can, however, understand the techniques and methods that were used to destroy our sense of community. We can more fully understand what happened if we analyze a similar and better documented mind control experiment that occurred during the Korean War. Now, on this note right here, I'm going to stop for this week's book club. But what I'm going to say is that next week, so a few things Dr. Anderson's going to go through is he's actually going to compare meritorious manumission and Willie Lynchism to how communist POWs were controlled during the Korean War, right? So because remember, you are at war. I mean, you've been at war for a long time, whether you know it or not. In fact, the easiest way to declare war against you is to convince you that there is no war. Then you don't put up your defense, you don't fight back, or whatever. I know I'm at war, so I'm always ready. I'm always fighting. I'm always preparing defenses. I'm always strategizing. So ultimately, he goes through a few different things. For example, he talks about 15 million African slaves, and the goal was to control a large number of captured slaves and make them hardworking, fearful, dependent, docile, submissive, and loyal labor tools to build wealth for their captors. So that's what you're trying to do. So the program was a system of dehumanizing and physiological conditioning using elementary principles of physical, emotional, intellectual deprivation conducted by slave masters with the equivalent of third to fourth grade education. The procedure was to transport these people into hostile lands, make them into a minority, and totally dependent on their oppressor. So for many black people, you are in hostile spaces. You get them to go to work with white folks that don't even like you. Two, make you into a minority. We hear the word minority all the time. I don't use that word because that's a very weak word. Also, totally dependent. If you don't understand the importance of independence, then I don't know what to do for you. I think that we have learned over time that the only way to have power is to have some form of independence. So when I'm in the car today talking to my son about life and everything else, the biggest thing we talk about is economic independence. I'm like, look, you don't have to get them to go work for nobody. You don't have to get them. You don't have to be a slave. You just have to do what rich people do: acquire assets, get you some property, get you a capital base. And then I talked to my daughter the day before, and I told her, I said, look, when you're talking about building wealth, the number one rule is you don't let go of your capital base. You get your capital protects you. Your capital is like your apple trees in the backyard that you can always eat off of. I said, you never chop down your apple trees. If somebody wants to borrow money, you don't chop it down your apple tree to give them a piece of the apple tree. You get apples off the tree and maybe you give them an apple, but you do not deplete your capital base, because that's the difference between rich people and poor people. Poor people struggle because they have no capital base. What is a capital base? A capital base is a pile of resources that you own, that you control, that belong to you, that protect you in the event that you get hit by an economic thunderstorm. And y'all know as well as I do that when America catches a cold, black people get pneumonia. When they decide they're gonna lay people off, they lay your black ass off first. When the pandemic hits, they starve your businesses, they take away your jobs. You're the one who's gonna get hit the hardest. So you, of all people, should be the ones who are first in line to understand every single thing you need to know about what it means to be economically secure. If you go through life in this world where all these people don't like you and nobody cares about you, and you're not thinking every single day about the security of yourself and your family, then I feel sorry for you. Somebody lied to you. Somebody got you on the sucker train and got you thinking in a way that I cannot relate to. Why in the world would you, knowing how racism works, knowing how this society works, why in the world would you leave yourself vulnerable, leave your children vulnerable, and depend on people who want to destroy you? That doesn't even make any sense. So when I talk to my kids this week, and I talked to both of them this week, these are true stories. I incorporate all this into our conversations because I want to, maybe it'll help some of you that are trying to figure out what to say to your kids. I told my daughter, I said, you get a capital base and you protect it. You don't go loaning money to stupid relatives who need money to pay the rent. Those suckers are going to stay broke. You don't go around wasting your money on nonsense Gucci bags and new cars and all that. You get all that after you make your investments. You protect your capital base at all costs, because that's what's going to make you and your kids safe in a world where a lot of people are very vulnerable. So little things like this is what Dr. Ennis is talking about. When he's talking about power and control and owning resources and all that. He's really just talking about building up a capital base and protecting it by any means necessary, because that is your key to freedom. The thing that makes me free, the reason I can say whatever I want, the reason I'm not scared of nobody, there's nobody that can really come fire me or come get me, is because I have a capital base and I protect it for dear life. I'm always thinking about risk management. I'm always thinking about protecting myself from vulnerabilities. I'm not trying to go out there. And if I do go out there, I'm going out there with full pad and shield and backup plans. I got a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, F, G. I'm using 2 alphabets to make sure that you're not gonna come over and get all of this that's over here. That's not gonna happen today. So shout out to this is the last point I'm gonna make on this, but I want to say a special shout out to everybody in here who has military training. You need to listen to your soldiers, because soldiers already understand security. Soldiers already understand every single thing. They understand security. They understand planning. They understand strategy. They understand preparation. They get all of that. Those are the leaders in the Black community, not the rappers, the soldiers. So I honor you and I respect you and I encourage you to take that military training and apply that to how you defend and protect your family on every single level. That's what's going to make you strong. That's what's going to protect you. That's what's going to make you great again. All right. So anyway, guys, that's it. That's all I want to say today. I'm going to bounce on out. And by the way, if you want to join us for the Black Wealth Bootcamp on July 7th, then feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. The link's right there at the top. Don't forget, your discount code you can use is either Dr. Boyce, that'll give you 20% off if you'd like to use it, or I think the word book club actually works. If you have any questions or any issues, just email the support team, support@theblackbusinessschool.com. They'll take good care of you, and I will see you guys next week. I'm going to head out. I got a flight tomorrow, and I love you, and it was awesome, and God bless you guys. So every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, that's when we have book club, so I'll see you guys soon. So take care now. Bye-bye.